3708.2. This meeting is being held by electronic communications via the web platform GoToMeeting. The catastrophic nature of this declared emergency makes it impractical and unsafe to assemble a quorum at a single location, and the purpose of this meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue the operations of the public body. All right. Again, with that, I'll call the meeting to order. And Stacy, do you want to proceed with the roll call?
Sure. From Stafford County, Cindy Shelton.
Here.
Mark Dudenheffer. Crystal Vanucci.
Here.
Meg Baumke.
Here.
Thomas Cohen. From Spotsylvania County, Tim McLaughlin.
Here.
Chris Yakubowski.
Here.
Deborah Frazier. David Ross.
It's Kevin Marshall. I'm one of the alternates. I'm taking Deborah's place.
Okay, thank you. From the City of Fredericksburg, Matthew Kelly.
Here.
Jason Graham.
Here.
Tim Barodi.
Here.
Mark Whitley. Doug Fawcett. From King George and Kupka. Kathy
Here.
Binder. Oh, thank you.
Here.
Thank you. From Caroline County, Nancy Long. Jeffrey Black. From Fred, Jamie Jackson.
Here.
Craig Reed. From Federal Transit, Tanya Holland. From PRTC, Charles Steigerwald.
Here.
Betsy Macy. Cynthia Porter Johnson. Representative from the Secretary of Transportation, Marcy Parker.
Here.
Michelle Shropshire.
Here.
From VDOT, Susan Gardner. Stephen Haynes.
Here.
From DRPT, Todd Horsley.
Here.
Jennifer DeBrule.
Here.
From the Commonwealth Transportation Board, Cedric Rucker. From the Citizens Transportation Advisory Committee, David McLaughlin. From Federal Highway, Ivan Rucker.
Here, phone only.
Thank you, and it looks like we do have a quorum.
Thank you, Stacy. Stacy, I've got your email that said there was no public comment submitted by email. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. We will move past chairman's comments. Chairman has no comments. Consent agenda is the approval of the June 15th and June 22nd policy committee meetings. What is the pleasure of the board?
You have to go back to item 4.
Oh, excuse me, I apologize. We need to approve the policy committee agenda. Chair will entertain a motion.
This is Crystal from Stafford. In the spirit of regional cooperation and at the advice of our council, I would like to make a motion to move items 8K and 8L to items 5A and 5B.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes with the changes. We will move on then back to, you put it at number 5, or are you putting it after the consent agenda?
Next item.
Want to just go right
5.
to the next one? That's fine with me. All right. I will call on resolution for officers is for me. Linda, can you go ahead? Okay, never mind. I got the resolution right here. Chair will entertain a motion on approving a resolution to appoint Cindy Shelton of Stafford County Chairman, Tim McLaughlin, Spotsylvania County as first Vice Chair, and Matt Kelly of the City of Fredericksburg as second Vice Chair. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Crystal from Stafford.
Second.
Second by Mr. McLaughlin. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. So with that, I will turn the meeting over to Cindy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah. Moving on to item 5B, Resolution 21-05, recognizing the dedicated service of Mr. Matthew Kelly. Ms. Fink, will you read that resolution?
Sure. Recognizing the dedicated service of Matthew Kelly, whereas the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization serves as the federally designated metropolitan planning organization for the Fredericksburg region, and whereas Mr. Matthew Kelly served with the distinction as the chairman of the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization from July 2019 to June 2020, and whereas Mr. Kelly carried out his responsibilities with great diligence and dedication, and now therefore be it resolved that the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization expresses its deepest appreciation and most sincere thanks to Mr. Matthew Kelly for his dedicated service as chairman, adopted by the Policy Committee at its meeting on July 20th, 2020.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 21-05. This is Crystal from Stafford.
Second, Jason from Fredericksburg.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I'd like to ask for, I was going to ask for a roll call vote, but that's kind of silly. So all that approve, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly, for all that you've done to help us out, and we'll talk about it. Moving on to item number 6, public involvement. Are there any additional public involvement that we need to be considered, Ms. Fink?
For clarification, we have two different, are you going back to asking if we have members of the public on the line for comment, or are you skipping down to the agenda item about public comment related to the LRTP?
I'm talking about, it's actually item 5, but public involvement on the agenda that's currently item number 6. Is it item number 5 or 6?
I see 5. For item number 5, if we have any members on the line who wish to speak, otherwise we have not received any written comments to read.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone online that wishes to speak?
Yeah. It is updated. So when you say 5, it's really 6.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about items.
Okay, thank you very much. Hearing no comments, I'd like to move on to old item number 6, new item number 7, which is chair's comments. I would like to defer those to Mr. Kelly.
No comments, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I would have liked to have heard a lot more because you sure did a lot for us. So moving on to old item number 7, new item number 8, the consent agenda. First item A is the approval of June 15, 2020 Policy Committee minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Crystal, Stafford.
Second, Steigerwald.
Very much. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Meg Bomke abstains, didn't attend the meeting.
That's approved. Item B is approval of the June 22nd, 2020 Policy Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Crystal Stafford.
Second, Matt Kelly.
Any discussion? All who approve, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say no. Any abstentions?
Abstention, Meg Bomke.
Abstention.
Yakubowski.
Mr.
Abstention.
Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Abstention, Tim Baruti. I was not present.
Jevin Marshall.
Glad to see I wasn't.
Okay. Everyone, just a second. Ms. Fite, do you have all the abstentions noted?
That's actually Leah Vihill's job. I'm
Leah,
not sure.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. But she is our minute keeper, and I'm sure she's doing that. I see her online.
Okay, thank you very much. And I apologize for that mistake. Next item on the agenda is item 9, which is action item, discussion items. The first item is allocation of CMAQ and STBG, also known as RSTP funding. Mr. Alex Oziak, are you going to be briefing that?
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. Just wanted to provide the committee with an update regarding actions and recommendations by the TAC regarding CMAQ, STPG / RSTP funding. Back at the June 15th meeting, the policy committee requested the scoring of the US 1, the Telegraph Road Woodstock Lane project in Stafford County for possible RSTP funding. FAMPO staff went ahead and utilized our current methodology to score that project, which resulted in an overall score of about 80. Now the scoring results were also included, we've got a tally along with some of the other projects that were previously submitted for CMAQ funding as well. We also have a spreadsheet here showing the current FAMPO CMAQ RSTP allocations. This includes the recent funding allocations and transfers as a result of Resolution 20-40. This funded the Route 1 208 Hood Drive project, provided additional funding for the Enon Road project, the Idlewild VCR Trail Connector project, the Onville Road project, and as well as the Route 208 Lafayette Boulevard and US 1 improvement project. And there's some of the funding allocations there. And this brings us next to Resolution 21-03. TAC committee voted to recommend funding the US 1 Telegraph Road improvement project with approximately $525,000 in RSTP funding. Now, these are mostly previous year RSTP allocations that were unused by other FAMPO projects.
Mr. Towery, will you bring forth the understanding of Telegraph Road to the whole committee meeting?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Jason Towery, Stafford. So we have had some discussions with VDOT over the past week where they've basically had some more information that from Richmond in regards to the use of funding for the project right now and the ability to offset local funding using the RSTP, which was originally what we understood could be done, does not seem to be what Richmond is now saying. So at this point, we're working with VDOT and would request to defer the action specific to the Telegraph Road item. The remainder of the allocations that are part of that resolution for Onville, the VCR Trail, and the Route 208 improvements, we would still be in favor of. But staff at this time would like to have an opportunity to continue to work with VDOT. I've already spoken with Marcy and the team over there. We're on the same page with that, and I believe that will address any concerns that they have at this time. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Okay, do we have a motion for 21-03, the allocation of the future STBG funds?
I make a motion, this is Crystal from Stafford, to approve resolution 21-03, except for the STGB funding allocations for Telegraph Road, and to request that VDOT work with Stafford to identify potential STGB needs on Telegraph Road.
Second, Matt Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes.
Do a roll call.
Yeah,
No.
I wouldn't, no.
He says no.
I'm sorry, we were having a discussion, sorry about the roll call vote, excuse me. All right, item number 9B is now 5307 and CMAQ funding opportunities. Mr. Adam Hager and Dr. Millsaps, would you brief us on that?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think Adam and I agreed I would start out, and then he'll take over when we start talking about particular items. And for those of you that are also on GWRC or came on time to this meeting, you heard a little bit of this. But this is a potential idea that's come forward from some of the transportation experts, and a lot of folks have been working on as a possibility. And it would require both GWRC and the FAMPO Policy Committee to agree to doing essentially a different version of a swap. And so where this has to start with, as you all know, GW Ride Connect, which of course you all have historically funded in part with the CMAQ funds, generates FTA 5307 funding. Most of you know that 5307 funding is most easily utilized for transit capital. Then if you would imagine it almost as concentric circles, in terms of what is eligible, we always know for sure the transit capital is eligible. And then as you move out further circles, then it's increasingly less and less clear, but we think there's probably more that it can be used to fund than just transit capital. But that is kind of what the core of it has traditionally been with other organizations. And so that funding is generated through the Van Pool Alliance, with all the vans going up and down the road and all the van pool operators putting in a bunch of data with us. And so that generates in the neighborhood of about $1.3 million per year, starting with FY20. And we expect that to go for several years. In addition, it's generated some 5307 CARES Act funding that we believe is going to be in the neighborhood of about 3.6, give or take, $1 million, so a pretty sizable hunk. The decisions about the use of 5307 funding is a GWRC board decision. And so that's why it was discussed at the last meeting. However, there is an opportunity here if FAMPO and GWRC wanted to potentially work together, that we could do, again, essentially a different version of a trade. So given the various uses of the funds, as you see here, much of which are transit capital, the TAC has explored the possibility of replacing some of the things that are currently funded with CMAQ with 5307 where appropriate. And so we have one project in particular that has been discussed with the TAC, and we have discussed extensively with the staff. And essentially what would happen in that, and then I will let Adam go into more details about that, but essentially what would happen is right now there is, you all as the FAMPO Policy Committee have committed funds, CMAQ funds, for these particular projects here, which are platform improvements. And what the idea would be is essentially GWRC would say, okay, you can use, VRE would be able to use that 5307 money instead for these platform improvements. And that in turn, VRE would release, or it's really a FAMPO decision, but imagine that money is then released back into the CMAQ bucket so it could be distributed to other things. And so you'll see that will require both bodies to decide this is a good idea and decide it's the amount that's appropriate. And so we'll talk at the GWRC meeting on August 17th about what some of those options might be. There are other things that 5307 can be used for. For instance, the FY fund, most of the FY20 funding is currently going to Fred, with $100,000 held back for other things. It can also potentially be used for mobility options and some additional things related to mobility. And so we'll talk more about those on the GWRC side, but wanted to make you aware of 5307 as the FAMPO Policy Committee. And then I'm going to turn it over here to Adam, if I might, who will go into more detail.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. So I wanted to discuss briefly on the heels of what Linda had to say there, the FAMPO role in this process, if the board would like to entertain, moving forward with this idea. And so FAMPO, of course, has an existing prioritization methodology for CMAQ funds, and it's in the process, of course, of being updated, and that's something that the TAC is working on, but we do have a current process in place. And so what I've done here is outline kind of 4 high-level steps that are involved so that the CMAQ funding follows the process that we have in that methodology. And so quickly, that's a call for projects, scoring those projects, proposed allocations to consider, and then board action, of course, to approve those allocations. And so what I want to focus on here for this discussion is kind of the first step in this process. So if this roughly $2.8 million is to be freed up and replaced with 5307 funds, the first step for FAMPO would be to initiate a call for projects. And so what that is going to look like based on the TAC recommendation from July 6th, which was their last meeting, was to consider the $2.8 million from the 2 UPCs related to platform improvements at Leland and Brook, as well as the FY27 CMAQ and STVG/RSTP funds. So that would be a total of approximately $8 million. Based on this amount of funding, the TAC recommended the following parameters for a call for projects. So effectively, each FAMPO locality, City of Fredericiksburg, Stafford County, and Spotsylvania County, would get 2 projects, each of which had to be round 4 smart scale candidates on either a local or regional list. And then PRTC would also get 2 projects that could come from one of the 4 sources identified there: Fred, VRE, VRPT, and GWI Connect. And one of those projects would need to be a round 4 smart scale project, and one would need to be up to PRTC's discretion. The TAC also recommended in the action that they took on July 6th to reinstate the 125 off the top allocation for GWI Connect staff support in FY22. So the question at hand before I turn this over to Mr. Oziak in Stafford County, if that's okay with the chair, is effectively, does the FAMPO Policy Committee want to direct staff to hold a call for projects? And if so, with what parameters? And so, Madam Chair, if I could, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Oziak, who would like to discuss a couple updates and tweaks to the TAC recommendation.
Yes,
Thank
certainly.
you very much.
So thank you.
Mr. Oziak.
So just to follow up on that, after some further discussions with the TAC committee, since we are still working on our prioritization process and making updates to that process, we think right now it might be too soon to move forward with allocating FY27 CMAQ and RSTP funding until we've gotten that new methodology in place. Furthermore, if that takes us back now to about the 2.8 million or so in play with the money we can transfer off the VRE projects, with about 8 projects, fighting for that $2.8 million pot of money, that doesn't really leave a whole lot of money to go around, a little over $350,000 or so for a project. So just wanted to make the policy committee aware of that as well.
Madam Chair.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Question here, why 8 projects? Why are we not just restricting this to the localities? I mean, so where did the number come from? Why are we not focusing on transportation within the jurisdictions in FAMPO?
That is what the TAC recommended at its July 6th meeting, based on, at the time, what was going to be potentially $8 million.
So is there, Where's the justification behind it, I guess is the question. Where's the meat behind this 8 projects?
Certainly,
I
sir.
would defer that. Yeah, Alex, go ahead.
Speak on that a little bit. Some of that discussion was centered around, originally we had talked about perhaps, 1 project per locality. We also, there were some brought up from PRTC, and Fred Transit also indicated some interest, and also trying to apply and get some of the CMAQ and RSTP funding for some projects of their own as well, and want to be part of the application process. And through some further discussion and talk amongst the group, we ended up settling on 2 projects per locality, as well as 2 projects for PRTC for transit projects.
So I guess I just bring up that I know all of these transit agencies have other funding sources, whether it's fares, whether it's other state and federal pots of money. I mean, with the 5307, and I know Fred got a bunch of money recently with CARES Act. So, again, if we're going to move forward with this, I prefer we stick to the projects in the localities and not to these other outside agencies that have other funding sources.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we take the time to look at what the situation of transit is right now, it's basically probably a little bit worse than it is for projects and highways and stuff. We were just briefed at PRTC about what the importance of GWRC Connect and things like slugging are to the 95 corridor, i.e. they are critical to keep some movement in the corridor. I understand the intent of trying to take limited amounts of funds and redirect them, but I think it's imperative that we do not lose sight of the importance of transit, GWRC Connect slugging to moving people. I mean, it is absolutely critical to our region to do that. And to that point, I would also ask by our next meeting when we're looking at this and the TAC comes back, we still have a resolution on the books where we were going to support GWRC Connect through 2026. That has now been dropped to 2022 with the understanding that the TAC said they will, quote, find other sources of revenue to carry through the commitment that this board has made. And I would hope that by the next meeting, the TAC will actually be in a position to identify those specific funding that will go towards GWRC Connect. Because I think we need to have a better understanding of how these funds are spent and how our transportation system operates, especially the transit component, before we just automatically start redirecting funds to other projects. And I do think that Fred and other transit services, while they get other funding sources, are also struggling for money. And again, CARES Act is a reimbursement. It is not handing over a bunch of money to them. And they have very specific on what they can spend it to. So to project and say that transit already has all the money they can do with is not correct. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead. Who am I recognizing? Oh, thank you.
I'd like to ask Adam, the prioritization process that the 8 projects will go through. If there are 8 projects submitted, will all 8 be funded?
There's nothing in the current methodology that says that each project would receive funding.
Right, so 8 projects could be submitted and 1 could be funded. 7 could not be selected for funding, is that correct?
That's correct, that would be up to this board.
Okay, and the prioritization process, the evaluation process is designed, in theory at least, to select the best projects available for funding. Is that not correct?
That would be safe to say.
Okay. Yeah, so personally, I don't see a reason to limit the projects other than the 8 that we've identified, and we can trust the prioritization process to give us the best projects.
Madam Chair?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Ms. Fanich.
I would actually like to make a motion to defer this action at this time and to request that the TAC recommend parameters for a call for projects for sample localities only with no transit funding.
Second.
Who is the second, please?
McLaughlin.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
Can I ask for a clarification on what do you mean by you say localities with no transit funding? Is that correct on the motion?
Yeah, like no VRE, no FRED, no PRTC.
So you were asking for projects that don't currently receive transit funding? I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing. I apologize for the technology glitch.
Just FAMPO localities.
Oh, just the FAMPO localities. I understand. All right. And then, a general question before the motion had been made. Actually, can someone explain to me, with the GW Ride Connect generating the 5307 funding, what would be the impact to GW Ride Connect if it is not one of the projects selected in this prioritization process?
I can speak briefly to that, Mr. Graham. If the 125 off the top allocation is not made in FY22 for GW Ride Connect, that would cause the program to lay off at least one full-time staff member.
Wow. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Be nice. PRTC, all these other organizations that we're now saying we want to take off the table play a role in moving traffic in this region. And we need to understand that that is in fact the case. All of this is interconnected. VRE, PRTC are all projects that help this region moving forward. And I kind of don't understand why we suddenly are getting into this mode of basically creating a situation that is going to have negative impacts on the movement of people in this region going north, south, or even east, west. This really doesn't make a lot of sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any other comments?
Madam Chair, I just kind of a rebuttal to that. There's millions of dollars of 5307 funds, I-395 and 95 commuter choice funds that they could apply for. So that was sort of my thinking process on that.
Madam Chair, can I jump in real quick? And I'll also defer to DRPT. Everybody keeps throwing out the 395 funds. My understanding is those funds are limited to new services. They're not available to existing service. So one of the things we need to have a talk about, at least at our next meeting, is understanding of what the parameters are for using those funds, because there is some information flying around that is not quite correct on how those funds are allocated. And I'll defer to Mr. Horsley if he wants to jump in on that point.
This is Todd Horsley from DRPT. I would just, I would agree with that there are strict parameters around the I-395 commuter choice funding. It does need to be new services that reduce congestion in the corridor. It's not funding for current operations or current projects or state of good repair. It is for funding that has, again, for new projects that reduce congestion that benefit the toll payers in the corridor.
I think this is why I was requesting the deferral, honestly, because there's a lot of funding available to the transit agencies that aren't available to us as a planning district. So I think we just need to do a little more research and defer this item.
Madam Chair, Tim McLaughlin.
Yeah.
And I concur. I mean, this was thrown up to us here with little information behind it. There's a whole lot more facts that should have been presented to the board before any decision was made. So their only answer right now is deferring this for the motion.
Well, Madam Chair.
Mr. Kelly.
I don't have a problem deferring the motion, but the motion included, if I'm not mistaken, basically a statement that any funding plans the TAC brings back to us can only be FAMPO related. To the point that was just made by the persons who made the motion and seconded the motion, there's a lot of information that we don't have yet. So why don't we just defer the motion, and then we can have that discussion and then make a decision on how these funds are allocated, instead of being specific to say we don't want any outside agencies outside of FAMPO to be funded, because that was part of the motion. So if you want to change the motion and just say defer the item so we have more information to make a decision, I have no problem with that.
Let's just take a vote.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion?
Ms. Shelton, this is Linda. May I ask you to clarify for the minutes exactly what the motion is? Thank you.
Sure. Yes, ma'am. The motion that Ms. Vanuch mentioned was to defer action to request that the TAC define some parameters for a call for projects for FAMPO localities only with no transit funding. Is that correct, Ms. Vanuch?
That's correct.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Any additional discussion? Okay, I'm doing a roll call vote. All right, I'd like to do a roll call vote. Ms. Lay, are you going to be calling out the members, or will it be Ms. Fine? Adam, would you do a roll call vote for us, please?
I don't have the roll in front of me, Madam Chair. I'm sorry. Can I ask Stacy to do that if she's on the line?
Yes, I have it. Stafford County, Cindy Shelton.
Aye.
Mark Dudenheffer. I don't believe he's on the line. Crystal Vanuch.
Aye.
Meg Baumke.
Aye.
From Spotsylvania, Tim McLaughlin.
Aye.
Chris Yakubowski.
Yes.
Kevin Marshall.
Aye.
From the City of Fredericksburg, Matthew Kelly.
No.
Jason Graham.
No.
From PRTC, Charles Steigerwald.
Nope.
From the Secretary of Transportation, Marcy Parker.
No.
And I believe those are all the voting members.
Tim Baruti has not voted yet from the City of Fredericksburg.
City of Fredericksburg.
Madam Chairman, Tim Baruti votes no. Thank you.
2, 3. We have 5 noes and 6 ayes.
That motion passes 6-5. The next item on the agenda, let me ask a question though, before we go on. When we defer action at this time, are we going to have a meeting? Is this the time to bring up that maybe we should have an August 10th meeting, since GWRC is going to have an August 10th meeting? And then defer that action to this time, or defer it to our next full meeting?
Madam Chair, if I may, I think this needs to be deferred to our next full meeting. I don't think there's any specific reason why we'd have to try to, if we do it the 10th, it's going to be truncated. This one's going to take some serious discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. I'll go with that. All right. Next item on the agenda is item C, Smart Scale Round 4 project. Mr. Lehane.
Yep. All right. So this is the presentation on the FAMPO GWRC Smart Scale Round 4 projects. I'm just going to go through the projects, and then we're just going to pass it over to the TAC leads for any further comments or questions that we may have. So the list here is of the 10 projects, 5 for GWRC and 5 for FAMPO. And you see here whether the locality they're in, whether they are originally from a VDOT related study, as well as the cost estimate. And please, if you have any questions, just stop me in the middle of it or wait till the end to ask. So these are the pre-application feedbacks from VDOT that we received when the projects were screened in. I won't read these in full, but you're welcome to view them on your own as well. So Route 208 was screened in conditionally. Exit 126 was screened in full. Garrisonville was screened in conditionally. Lafayette Boulevard multimodal study improvements were screened in conditionally, and I-95 exit 130 to exit 126 was screened in conditionally. So just a quick overview of what the projects are. As you can see here, for the sketch and the description, this is the Route 208 operational multimodal improvements. Shown here are the operational improvements. As shown here are also the multimodal improvements. And these multimodal improvements, number 1 and 2, are present on several other applications, which I'll reference as we go through them. Exit 126 stars with VRE feeder bus from Route 208 park and ride lot to the Fredericksburg VRE. So improvements along I-95 exit 126 and the park and ride lot improvements as shown previously. Garrisonville Road widening in Stafford. The Lafayette Boulevard multimodal improvements as shown previously with a few additions as shown on the left side. I-95 exit 130 to exit 126 southbound widening and multimodal improvements. So the multimodal improvements as shown previously, as well as a number of improvements to I-95. And lastly here, so these are our next steps. So we basically have to decide which application we will be taking off. So we can only submit 4 of the 5 applications. So the GWRC board approves the GWRC list, and the FAMPO policy committee approves the FAMPO list and endorses any projects in Stafford County, Spotsylvania County, or the City of Fredericksburg. While resolutions are not required until October 30th, staff must submit projects by August 17th, which requires board action. And FAMPO staff are continually working with localities and VDOT to complete these selected applications by the submission deadline of August 17th. And that is it. Anybody have any questions? If not, open the floor to any further discussion. I'll pass over to the TAC leads as well, if I may.
Do we have any comments or questions or discussion items from anyone, including the TAC lead? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Ms. Fanucci.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this item and schedule a FAMPO policy committee meeting on August 10th after the GWRC meeting.
We have a second.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead,
question.
Yes.
Does GWRC need to approve both these projects first, or once FAMPO approves it, does GWRC have to approve them as well?
No.
No.
Yes, no?
Is that Adam? Adam saying no?
My only
Correct.
concern, we can have the GWRC meeting at 5:30 as it was scheduled, right? And that's okay? And then on the 10th? Doesn't impact this being at 6?
No.
Okay.
So is that a second to the motion?
Second, Spotsylvania, McLaughlin.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Can I ask you a question, Madam Chair?
Please.
Is the policy committee looking for a TAC recommendation?
No.
Somebody needs to tell them.
No.
Ms. Fanucci?
No.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
and the rationale for moving to defer the FAMPO projects? That was his question. Why defer both?
That's correct.
Sorry,
Ms.
I
Fanucci?
was talking on mute. I apologize. Quit muting it. Stafford needs more time.
So the project list if I may, Madam Chair, is the project list going to change?
Well, we have to go from 5 to 4, so probably.
So, Ms. Fanucci,
Right.
if I may restate this, I think that what you're saying is that the current items that are on the project list are not going to change. We're just going to decrease it down select it to 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. And any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Resolution 21-06 is deferred till the next meeting, which will be August 10th at 6 p.m. Or when it's 6 p.m. Okay with the rest of the members? Anybody want to change it? Okay, sounds like it's okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Resolution 21-07 for Smart Scale Project applications.
Madam Chair, these are, sorry, if I could just.
Go ahead. Oh, would you please? Thank you. I was just going to ask some people to mute. We're having a hard time hearing. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was just going to say that the purpose of this resolution is to support the local applications. So just wanted to point out that this is different from the regional list. So just wanted to make that note.
Madam Chair, I'll move 2107.
Second, Steigerwald.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Madam Chair, Tim McLaughlin, are we going to defer these and vote on all these at one time? I don't know if these will affect any of the other projects.
I'd like to make a substitute if we defer till August 10th.
Oh, God.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Tim McLaughlin.
Do we have any further discussion?
Madam Chair,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
I'm just going to state that there is absolutely no reason to defer this as a project in moving it forward. It's not having the impact everybody seems to think it's going to have. So I'll vote against the motion.
I haven't called for the vote, but thank you, sir. So
Madam
any
Chair.
additional discussion?
Madam Chair,
I'm sorry,
Jason Graham from. Yeah, I have a question as to what information would be gleaned between now and August 10th as it regards to how it could change someone's vote on this resolution. This looks like more of just showing our support for the fellow localities.
Yeah, we're just still working with VDOT on some additional information.
So the Stafford County projects, the 4 improvements, they are not, so they may change.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Jason Towery, Stafford County. Yeah, we've been working with VDOT over the past week and a half to 2 weeks to clarify a couple issues. So we would appreciate it this time if Spotsylvania and the city want their applications endorsed. I don't see an issue with that, but at least for Stafford, we would appreciate a little more time till the August 10th date. Thanks.
Okay, we have a substitute motion on the floor. And a second. Do we have any additional discussion before we vote?
Madam Chair.
I guess. Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
As I understand it, what Jason was just talking about is this is not really impacting anything else with regards to your review of the other projects. It's basically just a pro forma endorsement of a project that both the city and Spotsylvania County have worked on to make happen. So I would hope that we could defeat the substitute motion because, again, it has no impact on what you guys are talking about for the 10th. and can move forward on getting this voted on. Thank you.
That's interesting, Mr. Kelly. I thought Spotsylvania seconded the substitute motion. Okay. Well, I guess we should do a roll call vote then. Ms. Fike, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. From Stafford County, Cindy Shelton.
I vote aye.
Crystal Vanucci.
Aye.
Meg Bomke.
Aye.
From Spotsylvania County, Tim McLaughlin.
Aye.
Chris Yakubowski.
Yes.
Kevin Marshall.
Aye.
From the City of Fredericksburg, Matthew Kelly.
No.
Jason Graham.
No.
Tim Baruti.
No.
From PRTC, Charles Steigerwald.
Aye.
Representative from the Secretary of Transportation, Marcy Parker.
Yes.
We have 8 ayes to 3 noes.
Thank you. The motion passes to defer this item, and that is all the smart scale round 4 projects will be discussed and voted on at our August 10th meeting. All right, next item on the agenda is item D, GW Ride Connect study. Mr. McLaughlin.
So I didn't understand, I didn't think this got put onto the agenda already. That's good. But what we talked about earlier at GWRC was looking at where should GWRI Connect be, whether it belongs in FAMP or GWRC. So one thing I asked the GWRC board was to bring back and have the discussion on the next regularly scheduled meeting to discuss where is the best location for transportation item. Should it be in FAMPO or GWRC? GWRC is more of it's really the fiscal agent and the overarching planning organization. FAMPO being the executor. I think that this is a better location for an executable type thing, and it might ease some of these issues where the funding goes back and forth between 2 organizations. So what I would like to do is the staff to get together and figure out between the jurisdictions and look at our planners, our transportation planners, and see what makes the most sense as far as where this should be in the future. And potentially we could save some funding, maybe reduce some redundancies and save the taxpayers some additional money. That's all I want to say right now, but I think what I'm asking the board to is, establish this study group to go ahead and look at that and where's the best location for it.
So this is Meg Bomke, Madam Chairman. I'm just curious, over the years with GW Ride Connect, is there a reason that it's been with GWRC? Is there any guidance, federal regulations? Are there any regulations or anything that give us guidance on where GW Ride Connect needs to be? Has it always been with GWRC? Does anybody have any additional information that would kind of shed some light on this subject?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
This is Nancy Law with Caroline County, non-voting member. Just one thought. It may be that Ride Connect also serves King George and Caroline, and we are not members of MAMPO. I don't know if that would have, we're not voting members on MAMPO, so I don't know if that would be the reason behind it, but I'll just throw that out as a possibility. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
One of the other reasons is the major funding sources for transit goes through an agreement between PRTC, GWRC. That's another reason for it. I have no problem having a conversation, but I think the conversation first needs to be an understanding by this board of what transit's role in the region is and how it is funded and what the sources of funding and how those funding can be used, because there seems to be a lot of confusion here on what we can spend money on.
Any other comments and questions or debate?
Madam Chair, Steigerwald.
Go ahead, Mr. Steigerwald.
Yeah, to address Supervisor Bumke's question, as far as I can remember, and I'm sure those who have been on the policy committee longer than I would tell you that this has always been a GWRC program, and that it is not unusual throughout the Commonwealth to have the commuter assistance program located within the regional commission or the PDC.
So, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. McLaughlin.
What isn't how's the Washington MPO? I think that's run, they've got the Ride Connect, a similar type organization underneath the MPO. So there are other organizations doing it the other way. And because we've always done it that way is not a good answer. But what is the right answer, I guess, as I'm looking at? And is there a better way, a more efficient way of doing this? Because right now, we spend a lot of money out there. We do a lot of subsidy, the van pools and various things for the taxpayers or some of the taxpayers. But I think we need to be able to do our due diligence, make sure we're doing the right thing. You know, we can do a lot of advertisement for essentially private entities. All these van pools are private businesses that we're subsidizing their advertisement through taxpayer money. We're subsidizing parking spots with taxpayer money for private businesses. So these are things that we need to look at because that's our job.
Madam Chair.
Any other? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. With the study, I want to make sure that if we're going to move forward with this, I'd like to ask that we also take a look at the role of transit in preserving or elongating the maintenance periods for roads, saving the taxpayers the funding, as Mr. McLaughlin has mentioned. Thank you.
Yeah, so just back to this subject, I think it's fine to study it. You know, it's like anything. I mean, look at what we found out regarding the TMA, regarding the RSTP money. So, you know, I think it's great if you want to peel the onion back. Let's do that and look at all the advantages and disadvantages and the cost associated with it.
Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Linda. If I might, I would just confirm that Ms. Long is correct, that GW Ride Connect also serves Caroline and King George County. So she is correct about that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Do we need to take any action on this or just let it ride because it's on GWRC's radar?
Well, Madam Chair, I was going to suggest that through GWRC and FAMPO that they work with the county transportation planners to develop that core group that would look at the issues. And I agree, look at some of the other transit issues and how they apply. With this whole COVID, there's going to be a change in the way people commute too. So those are things you can look at as well. I don't think everybody's going back to work 5 days a week in the federal government, right? They may be 4 days a week. So there's things we may want to look at. So I think that we should probably put this on the agenda for September. Have another discussion, get further guidance.
That sounds good, Mr. McLaughlin. Any other comments or questions before we move on? Okay, next we'll move on to item E, the recordation fees discussion. Mr. Towery.
Committee, Jason Towery. So just a real quick background here. General Assembly, what we're looking for is for FAMPO's support to restore distribution of the recordation fees to the localities at their historical levels. So what occurred, there was some new legislation signed into law by Governor Northam. It's House Bill 1414 or Senate Bill 890 if you're interested in looking it up. But essentially what it did, it reduced the amount of state recordation tax revenue distributions to the localities from a total of $40 million annually to $20 million annually. And that occurred effective July 1st of this year. A separate piece of adopted legislation concurrently dedicated the entirety of that $20 million in state recordation tax revenues to the Hampton Roads Transit Program, and that also occurred effective July 1st, 2020. So what this did, the change in state recordation tax revenue allocations combined with the earmarking of this revenue essentially resulted in the loss of all state recordation tax revenues for localities in most parts of the Commonwealth. In the case of Stafford County, we were averaging about $870,000 a year, which was coming from the state. Those were funds that we were using to help match with other state and federal funds for smart scale revenue sharing, et cetera. I'm also aware that Spotsylvania County and I believe the city have also lost significant amounts of funding as well. So FAMPO, we're requesting or recommending that they consider a resolution of support to request that the state immediately restore this to the historic levels of recordation fee funding to the localities. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any comments or questions for Mr. Towery? Okay, Mr. Towery, do you want to make a motion to about the resolution? I know you can't. You're not a voting member. I'm sorry.
Sure. Okay. We would be happy to have a motion at this time. The issue, we understand, will be back in front of the General Assembly this fall. So if FAMPO would like to take a motion tonight in support of that, or if you'd like to bring it back.
Madam Chair, can I just recommend that a resolution be drafted for the next meeting so we can actually take the time to do things instead of rushing things through? We can wait to the next meeting to do this and have an absolute resolution that everybody can read and understand before we vote on. I'm not saying we're against it. It makes perfect sense, but let's start following the process that we have normally followed in the past.
Okay.
They don't go back till August 18th anyway, so.
Okay.
Could we have that resolution for the August 10th meeting?
Sure. We can do that. We can work with FAMPO staff to make that happen.
Okay, wait, we don't have a second.
That wasn't
Mr. Kelly.
Motion, that was just a recommendation.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Do we need a
to
motion?
make a resolution, draft a resolution to bring back to the August 10th meeting for the committee meeting to consider sending to, who are we
the
sending?
General Assembly.
Yeah, sending it to the General Assembly about our recordation taxes.
So moved.
Do we have a motion? Email. Okay, second. Nobody wants to second it?
Second, Spotsylvania, McLaughlin.
Okay, that's all right. So we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say no. Just a reminder, that was kind of surprising because all we're doing is a draft resolution that if we don't agree, if anyone doesn't agree with what the wording is or the context, we can all turn it down at that moment. So having moved forward, the next item is item F on UPC 115614 on Route 1 Market Street funding discussion. Mr. Agnello.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I just want to give a brief update on a funding issue with this project. I'll say that this is a existing FAMPO CMAQ STBG RSTP project, which is partially funded. VDOT recently increased the cost estimate of the project from approximately $5.66 million to approximately $5.85 million in response to having some better information available. VDOT is in the process of confirming the exact amount of FAMPO CMAQ STBG RSTP funding on the project. We think based on FAMPO records that there's about $4.74 million on the project. The traditional FAMPO approach has been to fully fund existing projects before funding new projects. Spotsylvania is planning to request that FAMPO fully fund this project in a September timeframe. If the $4.74 million on the project is the correct amount of funding, the amount of funding necessary to fully fund it would be about $1.12 million. I'm happy to take any questions.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an observation, the amount of money involved and the additional money would be about in line with the loss in funding we've received because Spotsylvania County did not fully fund their contribution to GWRC. I think we had a discussion on this a while back with how much money it's costing us on matching funds. So I would hope that maybe that Spotsylvania County, when they come back for this on a vote, they might give us an update on whether or not they're going to make up that difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Agnello, when do you need an answer back from the policy committee?
Madam Chair, we plan to come back in a September timeframe.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to item G, public comment period reporting summary. Ms. Fine.
Yeah, what you see on your screen right now probably looks familiar. This was on the agenda at the last policy meeting, so you've seen this in your packet before. I'm going to touch on just two parts of this because it involves the next two items on this agenda tonight, which is approving the 2045 LRTP and the related air quality conformity analysis. Within this report that you're looking at, it gives a in-depth view of public comment and input we received through surveys from May 20th through June 19th. Overall, comments for the 2045 LRTP amendment express a desire for improved public transit and alternative modes of transportation. Also, there was a lot of support for a new parallel road to I-95. Also included in public comment was a request for funding clarity within the document. And also in this document, you will find VDOT comments, which provide updates to estimates and project descriptions. We only received one survey response and one comment for the related air quality conformity analysis, and that was positive in nature. Are there any questions on this at all?
Okay, seeing no comments. Thank you, Ms. Fine. I'd like to move on to
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, sir.
just one quick question on these surveys. So it goes back, how many people do we reach out to if we're only getting 14 responses?
Yeah, so because of COVID, we had all virtual public involvement for this go around. Whereas before we've been in the library so we can do face-to-face and encourage people to take the surveys and collect feedback right then and there from the individual. And yes, as you notice overall for our surveys for this public comment period, we only received a total of 14. We are sending it out to our distribution mass email database, which includes you all, and that's over 200 email contacts. We also put out a press release which was picked up in the local news talking about this survey and the importance of taking it. But I would ask that we get a little bit more support from our locality partners pushing this out. I know in the past Stafford had put this on their website and that was great. That had to do with our COVID-19 survey, which we received 169 responses. So I think you can see the benefits of having people help us share this information.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Ms. Fine. Moving on to item H, Resolution 2101, approving the 2045 LRPT amendment. Mr. Hager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are looking for board approval of the 2045 LRTP amendments this evening. We did not include the amended chapter tonight that is in the meeting packet from the June 22nd meeting. So this has been effectively on hold for a little while. There's a few updates to the project list to reflect the current universe of projects in the region, including round 3 smart scale and then the new fiscal years 21 to 24 TIP that are included in this amendment. And I'm happy to take any questions before a vote.
Any comments or questions? Do we have a motion to approve 2101?
So moved, Steigerwald.
Second, Bomke.
Any other discussion? Chair calls for a vote for Resolution 2101. All who approve say aye.
Aye.
All against say no. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda, item I, Resolution 21-02, approving the 2045 LRTP Air Quality Conformity Analysis Report. Again, Mr. Hager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we are looking for approval from the board on this as well tonight. This is basically a task that VDOT performs. They look at the project list and see if it conforms to different air quality standards, and the conformity determination for the LRTP was that it does conform. So we are looking for policy committee approval of this document.
Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-02?
So moved, Steigerwald.
Second, Vanucci.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to call for a vote for Resolution 21-02. All approve say aye.
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 All against say no or nay. Hearing none, Resolution 21-02 is approved. Next item on the agenda is the FAMPO schedule update. Again, Mr. Hager.
Just a couple updates here. So, of course, we have determined tonight that this committee will meet at 6 p.m. on August the 10th, right after the GWRC board. Other than that, there are no FAMPO meetings in August. We do have a postponed BPAC, so that's our Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. They do meet in August. It was postponed from July. But besides those two, we do have a full slate of meetings starting in September. We are happy to take any questions on this, either now or at any time if you want to give us a call about the FY21 schedule.
Any comments or questions or conflicts related to the schedule that you see before us? Thank you, Mr. Hager. Item number 10 is correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chair. We do have two items in the correspondence tonight. The first two pages are a conformity finding for our region from the Department of Transportation, and this is for our FY21 to 24 TIP. And so the finding was that it does conform. So you're welcome to read that at your leisure. We also have comments on the TPV FAMPO MOU draft that was distributed on June 25th to members of this committee. The first document is that document that was distributed, just for reference. Second is comments that we received last week from FHWA. They are notated on page 4 of this document, if you'd like to read those. And then as well, we did receive comments later on last week from the VDOT district. And those comments were via email that you can read as well. So that is it for the correspondence, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. Item number 12, staff and agency reports. Do we have any reports?
Yes, ma'am. We do have just 2 reports. We are in the process of hiring a full-time transportation planner, so that posting is live on our website. And then we are, of course, still in the process of hiring a FAMPO administrator.
Thank you. Any other any comments or questions related to the staff and agency reports? Okay, moving on to board member comments. Ms. Fine, or would you mind doing a roll call to see if there's any members that want to discuss any items? Make any comments?
Sure. Stafford County, Cindy Shelton.
Pass.
Crystal Vanucci.
Defer.
Meg Bomke.
Defer.
From Spotsylvania, Tim McLaughlin.
None any.
Chris Yakubowski,
No, I'm good.
Kevin Marshall,
No comment.
from the City of Fredericksburg, Matthew Kelly,
Pass.
Jason Graham,
I actually just wanted to say hello to everyone since this is my first meeting of FAMPO, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Graham.
how about anything from Tim Barodi,
Defer.
from King George and Kupka,
Pass.
Kathy Binder,
Pass.
and I don't believe we have anyone from Caroline County on the line, do we?
I'm here. This is Nancy, but I pass. No comment.
Okay, thank you. From Fred, Jamie Jackson,
No comment.
from PRTC, Charles Steigerwald,
No comments.
with the Secretary of Transportation, Marcy Parker,
No comment.
Michelle Shropshire,
No comment, thank you.
from VDOT, Susan Gardner, or how about Stephen Haynes?
No, thanks.
From DRPT, Todd Horsley,
No comment.
Jennifer DeBrule, and from Federal Highway, Ivan Rucker.
Just let me quickly add that we had made some additional comments to the MOU and we passed those on to VDOT. We would appreciate if VDOT can perhaps summarize those comments and forward them to the staff if they hadn't done so already. I appreciate it.
Madam Chair.
Comments have been forwarded. Ms. L.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, what MOU are we talking about?
This is a TPP MOU. Within your correspondence, you will see a document from Federal Highways on their comments related to the MOU.
Thanks.
Do we have any other comments, Ms. Fine, or someone that we didn't call?
That was everyone on the list.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys very much for your comments and your deferral. Moving on to item number 13, an action item discussion is resolution 21-10, allowing the chair or the policy committee to go into a closed session. Ms. Bomke, would you read the resolution 21- is it 09 or 10? It's actually the resolution within the packet says 2110 or 2109, but on the agenda it shows 2110. Which one is that? Is it 2109?
It should be 2109, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Bonke.
Allowing the policy committee to go into closed session, whereas the policy committee desires to adjourn into a closed session for discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of FAMPO, specifically the administrator and staff assigned by the George Washington Regional Commission Executive Director to carry out the Urban Transportation Planning Program. I move that FAMPO go into closed session pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia for the purpose of discussing issues related to personnel.
Thank you, Ms. Bomke.
Madam Chair, may I ask a favor, I guess. I don't know exactly what the, the request would be. So we have limited what our original thoughts were going to be about the closed session to now just discussing the path forward for you all to the direction for the staff on moving forward with FAMPO administrator selection and recruitment process. So my read is that would not necessarily need to be a closed session. And so we've removed the other items. So Madam Chair, since I can't make a motion, I can't make that motion, but it is my recommendation, if someone would like to make this motion, that this would just be a discussion item in open session. And
Thank you, Ms. Millsap.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to move item 2109 to open session?
Madam Chair, I move that resolution 2109 be an open session discussion.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
That's Tigerwald.
Thank you, sir. All who approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I don't know if it's a proper way, but I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it should be. Sorry, we're having the conversation here. And so all approve said aye. Did I hear any nays? Okay, this item has been moved into open session. Ms. Dr. Millsaps, are you going to address this item to the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would love to. Thank you. So as you all know, we are still without a FAMPO administrator. We have posted twice and run the second process through very far down the process, but in the end did not end up with an administrator. As you know, you amended the UPWP to give you the option of hiring an outside firm and being able to use FAMPO funds to do that, or we can repost. We just need direction from you. Michelle and I need direction from you how you would like us to move forward on the search process.
Anyone on the committee have any comments or questions or discussion on to provide direction to Dr. Millsaps and her team to continue our search?
Well, I thought we discussed getting a headhunter in there because of the difficulty in reaching out to certain candidates and stuff like that. So, I mean, we've done it in the county. I'm not a big fan of it, but this is a special position, and you know, it didn't cost us that much to do it. So, I'd recommend we move forward with bringing on a headhunter.
Any other comments or questions? Comments?
So are there, I guess the question I would ask, are there certain headhunters that specifically focus on transportation? And if we hired a headhunter, do we want to give staff kind of a not to exceed amount for a consultant?
I would just reach out to the county administrators because I think they've all gone through this process at one time or another and probably have the names of the various agencies that do this for localities and at least get an estimate of what it's going to cost, and then we can decide on the 10th, August 10th, whether maybe set those parameters as far as cost and timelines and stuff like that.
So are you recommending that we reach out to all the different county administrators in the city to get that list?
Well, that's what I was thinking, because I know we've used a couple different organizations, and I'm sure the city, and we may have all used the same ones, more than likely, but they would probably have a better idea of who's available than as far as what agencies are available, more so than anybody on the committee here.
Okay. Is that possible to have that short list provided by the August 10th meeting, or does it need to wait until the 17th? Or excuse me, the September?
I would think that information could be put together by the 10th.
Madam Chair, this is Linda. We can certainly report on the 10th at least how far we got and go from there. That would be, we can just make sure this is an item, and if we have whatever information we're able to get together, we'll be on the 10th.
So Dr. Millsap, you'll be able to provide us that information by August 10th so that we can make a vote, so we can move forward on this critical item.
We will do our best. I don't know. I can get information, of course, from your CAOs by then. In terms of actually, having particular quotes or anything like that, I don't think we could do it, but we could certainly provide you with some kind of common information that would probably allow you to make the type decision Ms. Bumpke's talking about in terms of general direction and not to exceed.
All right, thank you, Dr. Millsap. Any other comments or questions? Okay, without further ado, I'd like to adjourn to our next policy committee meeting, which will now be on August 10th at 6 p.m. Thank you guys very much for attending. It was a productive meeting.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you.